Boom. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, I didn't know the music stopped once I had the nice music going. Oh, it's still going. No, maybe not. I don't know. I like Eric he did in the Take It Easy Sports Show and crashed out when his Century League Wi-Fi. I might crash out because the Wi-Fi here at ASU is absolutely terrible. So might be another week, not as bad as last week. I went back and watched the video from last week. The lag on that video was just absolutely terrible. So apologize for that. And it might be a little behind slash laggy now. So I got to figure out that problem. I don't know why. I think I'm going to move software. Has been using StreamYard, but I think I'm going to end up using OBS. I don't know. It's soon. I got to figure it out. I was kind of messing with it this week because I definitely would prefer to use an actual like streaming. No shame on StreamYard whatsoever. It's a great service, but it definitely has issues, and I think maybe I just have terrible Wi-Fi here at ASU. And I have like a LAN or whatever. You would think I know what that cord's called. You plug it in the computer, and that tells you how young I am. And the Wi-Fi, the signal will be a little bit better, but it doesn't work in my room, so I got to deal with trying to figure out what to do and still getting situated. And for those who are listening or watching for the first time, I'm Adam Beadle. Welcome into the weekend preview here on this wonderful November 15th. And playoffs are coming soon for Arizona high school football. They start tonight, 6A, 5A. 4A start tonight. I think 1A actually has their state championship tomorrow. And 2A and 3A are had the first round last week, so I think they got the second round tonight. I don't keep up with small football as much as I should because I've heard it's a lot of fun, and I always usually get out to see Valley Christian play once or twice a year, but for whatever reason this year I was not able to get out there. So, man, what's new? What's going on? Talking about some of the stuff in Valley sports. Suns dealing with some injuries right now, but hopefully they'll be good to go soon. Really good start to the season. I think KD is definitely a legitimate candidate for MVP, which would be a lot of fun to see the Suns who, like Jacob Saliga wrote a couple weeks ago, I think the Phoenix Suns definitely have the potential to be a NBA Finals team this season. And with the Kevin Durant MVP on top of that, that would be really cool. Another team that's hot in the Valley right now, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't keep up with the NFL, I think, as much as I should, just because I have to know so much when it comes to high school football and ASU football and basketball. Which, by the way, ASU basketball, big win last night at the Footprint Center. It was a lot of fun, even though there was there had to have been at least 15,000 plus GCU fans there. I mean, it was a GCU home game. The students filled that entire arena, and credit to them. That extra credit, I bet, was real nice when they hit their grade books this morning. But credit to the turnout they have. Obviously, they don't have football, so that's their basketball is kind of their football. So that game was a lot of fun to not only cover but just to watch, and the atmosphere of it. It really felt like an NCAA tournament game, which was super cool. Lots to get to today. We're going to talk more about ASU's win over GCU and Yosan Sanin, who had a big game. We're also going to talk a little girls flag football with our very own Mason Byers. He'll be joining me around 4:30 to break it all down. Sound like Pat McAfee. And then we'll talk some Arizona high school football playoffs. But for now, we got the one, the only Jacob Saliga joining me here on the weekend preview live in the Desert Edge parking lot once again as DE getting ready to face up against Cactus Shadows tonight. I'll be out there, and I get to see Jacob not once but twice today.
Yeah, man. It's a big day. It's a big day. It's a big weekend in general. ASU getting it started last night. The big win for against Grand Canyon last night. Got ASU football. I put my preview out today. I called my shot, thinking pulling an upset tomorrow. Then obviously tonight, great slate of games in this state for football tonight. Obviously, I'm biased, but I think a lot of the media I've talked to agrees. The game I'm involved in tonight, DE versus Cactus Shadows, is the game of the night in the state. I feel like in terms of 4A through 6A playoffs, I don't think you can get a better matchup than this.
Absolutely. So Jacob's having, like I mentioned before the show, Jacob's having a little bit of video issues. You can hear him well though, but me and Jacob are both having video issues. So we're just gonna have to deal with that, and the audio will sound nice. At least the people on Spotify will appreciate that. We've tried it for so long. When we've done the pre-recorded segments, we started using Zoom just because there's no lag.
Yeah.
Uh, Trust me, we're trying. The Wi-Fi at ASU is absolutely terrible.
The Wi-Fi in West Goodyear isn't much better. Don't worry.
I'm sure it's not. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about ASU. Big win against UCF, and like it is kind of the story that has been told for most of the season with this ASU team. ASU coming up big in the middle eight again, getting that 35-31 win over UCF. Jacob, what are your takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway has to be survive, survive, survive. Somehow, some way, these late game situations, Arizona State is finding new ways to survive week by week. And this past week, they had to do it without their Heisman candidate, do it all superstar running back Cam Scatteraboo, and they still were able to get the job done. And I think that's the thing that is so impressive about this team is that they have done it in so many different ways, whether it was getting the massive stop in the Utah game, whether it was getting the score in the 2-minute drill against Kansas to win that, or this week getting the forcing the missed field goal, going down and scoring and getting another stop. Like this team continues to win tight games in these hard fought battles, and it truly is impressive. And this team, it's as odd as it may sound, even though they had the setback against Cincinnati, it seems like since that Texas Tech loss, this team has just continued to improve on both sides of the ball week in and week out. And now we may see it come to fruition in these final 3 weeks where they play their best ball they've had all year.
Yeah, and I was talking about it the other night on the Sun Devil Spaces with Ralph Amsden. And he asked me, what is the takeaway for ASU in this one? I think the biggest thing is that we now know that ASU can win a football game without Cam Scatteraboo. I think that's the biggest factor. I think in some arguments, there's also even possibly the conversation where you make comparisons to the Cincinnati game where Sam Levitt is a more important piece of that offense that ASU needs over Scatteraboo to win games. Granted, I think Cincinnati just outplayed ASU in that one. But Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson were connecting again. They had a pair of touchdowns and some big pass plays. What is kind of, after evaluating that offense without Cam Scatteraboo, what did you have any more thoughts, or kind of what stood out to you from that?
Well, I think what stood out to me is the same thing that has stood out since that Kansas game, is seeing how much of a focal point Jordan Tyson continues to be in this offense. Initially I was a little hesitant on how valuable his role may be, only because when you have a wide receiver that is so much of a focal point in your receiving game and you're not really getting anybody else involved, it becomes very easy for a defense to key in and hone in, roll a safety over on him, basically bracket him and force him to beat you against two guys. But Jordan Tyson has taken it in stride. UCF tried to throw different schemes his way to try and get him to be as least effective as possible. And that's a credit to Coach Reed, their DB's coach over there at UCF. But just seeing Jordan Tyson get the ball, do things with it, that's got to be the biggest standout. Because waiting, I think the big thing that we were concerned about when the season did get started was who was going to be the X factor to step up outside of Cam Scatteraboo in this offense. And Jordan Tyson has been the one to really elevate his game when it's mattered the most.
Absolutely. Cody Cameron saying Jordan Tyson might have earned himself a few dollars from his play last few weeks. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think if you're Arizona State also too, like Kenny Dillingham was saying about Sam Levitt, we got to get this kid condos. We got to get him NIL deals, everything they can throw at him. I think ASU is going to, I'm going to go out early and kind of make a prediction on this one that Jordan Tyson might be the one guy that Arizona State's really going to have to try to convince, and not necessarily convince, but try to retain him and keep him next season.
Oh yeah, 100%. When you look at schools, whether it's Oregon or Alabama or even Washington, these schools over the past few years have been teams that like to pull in transfer receivers to make an impact on the offense. So it would not surprise me one bit if one of those schools with much stronger NIL base and much deeper pockets tries and comes and poach him away. But like Dillingham has reiterated as the season's gone on, and as you've seen, is that there is a buy-in and investment from boosters and from fans alike in the NIL game
Yeah.
has elevated ASU's NIL status. And I think if the Sun Devils finish this stretch 2-1, and we're talking about 9, 10 wins this season, it would not surprise me if Dillingham has a war chest that becomes available to him in January that's much deeper than the majority of the rest of the Big 12. Because the thing that ASU has the advantage on is that, unlike in the Pac 12, ASU is actually one of the more valuable teams in the Big 12 conference in terms of availability for NIL and different marketing opportunities and all these different things. That I think the Sun Devils can utilize that come January or come
Absolutely.
December and January in the portal.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think another thing too is another thing that was brought up in Sun Devil Spaces on Wednesday is that it's not just the money that Kenny Dillingham is getting to get these recruits. It's just the fact that ASU is winning. And that's really kind of been Kenny Dillingham's message all along was if we're going to get good recruits here, we're going to get guys, especially guys from the state of Arizona to come here, we're going to need to win first. And that's what they did. And we saw that this weekend. ASU getting two big wide receivers out of Texas to commit to the Sun Devils. And then obviously picking up one of the best defensive players in AZ and Zethus.
Yeah, and I know you were in space with me on Wednesday as I was talking about Zeph. I mean, I saw him play up close here at Desert week 1 and just saw his impact, his speed, his ability to finish tackles, his ball skills in that back half of that second is impressive. And you saw him make plays against Corona Centennial, who has a couple of guys that ASU is very familiar with. And so he's a guy who elevates his game when it matters the most. And I think he's somebody that Sun Devil fans will grow to love because although he's got some big-time offers, Tennessee, Kansas State, the list goes on and on, I don't see him flipping as of now. I think he's a guy that will sign with the Sun Devils come next December. And I think what will help with that too is that I think as long as ASU keeps winning, especially if they finish this season strong, it would not surprise me one bit if there are a couple players here in the state of Arizona in this 25 class who are currently committed elsewhere, who we get to signing day and suddenly you get the flip alert. And it wouldn't. And I think too, as long as the Sun Devils keep winning, the impact that that's going to have on the kids in the 2026 class going into spring, the 2027 class who will be going into their upperclassmen years, and even these young 2028s, I think is something that's going to pay off for them.
Yep. No doubt. I think there's a number of players you can look at in the state and you realize, they're getting a lot of them are getting some of these bigger offers, but then you really look at it and say, oh, ASU was actually either the first or the second or third school to offer this kid. And so I think that ASU already kind of took that chance with some of the kids early. I think that might end up helping them in the long run.
Obviously he's only a sophomore, and so it's hard to tell where everything will be in 2 years or what position they're in. And I'm not going to go out and say that Noah Roberts will be a Sun Devil, but look at him, for example, literally at the sevens when he's technically a week out of being an 8th grader. Kenny Dillingham offers this kid on site at ASU sevens with Basha, and now look at him. Alabama, Oregon, Miami, Penn State, all these big-time offers and all these big-time schools for this sophomore running back. ASU was the first. And I think especially with these in-state kids, especially with some of these younger ones, which you're starting to see this trend happen with some classes where these are the kids who, okay, maybe their parents are from Arizona originally now. Maybe they aren't necessarily the first generation from Arizona. So they have that buy-in. They have that want to be a part of the state of Arizona and stay home potentially. And I think that's something that will pay off. I just use Noah Roberts as an example. Think about Jake Hillebrand, his Basha teammate, Dante Tyson, the current Peoria athlete, or even in this 2028 class, some of the guys we have here, like a Jelani George, Makai Lambeth, and a couple others.
Yeah,
These are kids who I'm not saying ASU is going to get them, but building that impact and building that connection now will pay off for them 3-4 years where ASU may be a finalist and may have a chance to get them, as opposed to the past where they aren't even considered after their sophomore year.
absolutely. I think there's another kid in that 2028 class too in Hamilton, wide receiver Roy Oliver, whose dad actually played for the Sun Devils
Yep.
for a couple of years. So I think there's some good ties there. And that I would definitely be interesting to watch that recruitment and see how ASU approaches that. We could go on and on about recruiting for forever, but we have so many other things we got to get to. Let's talk about this game this weekend. Arizona State traveling to Manhattan, Kansas to take on number 17 Kansas State. This is a battle between two 7-2 teams, and ASU going up against a quarterback that Brian Ward made Lamar Jackson comparisons to this week. What do you think about the Sun Devils' chances in this one, and especially going up in a guy like Avery Johnson?
Well, I don't see Lamar Jackson. I'll say that. Listen, Avery Johnson is one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 conference, but he's really been inconsistent this year. His first couple of games of the year, he had the least amount of passing yards per game and was the least efficient quarterback in the conference. Then he had a strong month of October after the BYU loss, but then you saw the same issues mechanically and just overall with the offense just before their bye week in that loss to Houston. And I think ASU is going to be able to capitalize on it. Look, the fact of the matter is this. When you look at how to beat Kansas State, it's as simple as this. Stop the run.
Yeah.
Force Avery Johnson to beat you. It sounds crazy. Let a guy who entering the year people thought could be a top 10 quarterback in college football and letting him beat you. But the matter is this. When you look at both of Kansas State's losses so far, it's because DJ Giddens and Dylan Edwards, or at least earlier on the year, could not get the ball rolling on the ground.
Yeah.
Now, against Houston, Giddens had 50 yards on 17 carries. If he's going to be that inefficient, ASU is that you. I would say this: if that's his stat line tomorrow, you don't even have to watch the game. The Sun Devils are going to win the game.
Wow.
Earlier on in the year, you look at he had 90 yards, but was very inefficient with it against BYU, and so for the Sun Devils, it's as easy as that: stopping the run, getting them behind the chains on first down to force them to pass the ball. Because Avery Johnson, you saw the inaccuracies. You saw him become a little hesitant against Houston. And I think the Sun Devils, especially in the back half of that secondary that has only gotten better as the year go on, are going to be opportunistic, have a really good chance to be successful.
Absolutely. And the offensive side of things for Arizona State, you got obviously your star running back in Cam Scadaboo. How well do you think Scadaboo will perform this weekend?
I think it remains to be seen because the results are 50-50 in college and in the pros when you see running backs return from shoulder injuries, shoulder sprains. Some of the time they get back to that same pop. Some of the other times those backs are a little hesitant to use their power to try and drop their shoulder drop. Listen, there's one thing I think ASU fans and us and everybody in the media knows. Cam Scadaboo is different. I think even if it's bothering him, he's still going to try to lower his shoulder into somebody and run through Kansas State. I really do believe that.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that is going to be the X factor this week is going to have to be Scadaboo's ability in the receiving game. The fact Kansas State is one of the worst defenses in the Big 12 and in college football, and passing yards allowed per play, passing yards allowed per game, and passing attempts and completion percentage. Every major passing category. It's actually been the Achilles heel, which is surprising because that secondary was viewed as one of the better ones in the conference entering the year.
Yeah.
But as we're seeing right now, as we're talking about a 7-2 ASU team, what was expected in the preseason in the Big 12 conference is not what you're going to get. And so I think for ASU, it's as simple as get Sam Levitt going early. I think Kansas State's defense is going to be concerned enough about Cam Scadaboo that they're going to want to try and sell out to stop the run early. If ASU can flip its game script almost from what we've seen from them previously and get Levitt going with some easy throws, maybe get Shimon Mateer involved, maybe
Yeah,
get Gil
absolutely.
or somebody else involved early, to where Kansas State has to drop everybody down and spread out the box and spread everybody out the box, pardon me, to where Cam Scadaboo can now do his little shimmy at the line, power through a hole, and get those 5-6 yards to keep Kansas State's defense honest. Because that's exactly what a Kansas offense that was so up and down early in the year was able to do against the Wildcats in their rivalry game a few weeks ago. And although Houston did not pass the ball much, when they did, that's exactly what they were doing. And that allowed them to get the running game going and ultimately beating them just 2 weeks ago.
Do you think that not to say a large amount, but a maybe good amount of ASU success they've had this season, especially in the last couple of games with their passing game, has kind of been that not necessarily that teams aren't prepared to face up against Sam Levitt, but they just don't know really how good Sam Levitt is?
I think it's that, but I also think too it's how ASU uses the passing game. ASU's passing to run splits right now are 65-35 in favor of the run. So that means they're running 65% of their plays. When a team is running the ball as effective as ASU is and is pounding it down your throat, you are so focused on trying to stop the run that you're going to give up easy completions and easy plays. And so, I mean, we see it in high school all the time. Think about Basha against Brophy earlier on the season. You, if I'm not mistaken, you were at that game, correct?
Yep.
Basha with the two-back system pounded it down Brophy's throat. And when Brophy finally adjusted to trying to contain the run, Brody Veers was able to be like, okay, here's your reason. Here's this, here's that. Let me start picking you apart. And it's as simple as that. And so I think that because, and this is a credit to Marcus Arroyo and Dillingham for allowing Levitt to be comfortable enough to where they're not putting him in a position to where he has to force things and not putting him in a position where he has to do more than he wants to do. I think it's as simple as this. If you make life easier for your quarterback by running the ball, your quarterback isn't going to make mistakes. And so I think that's why you see a younger quarterback as Sam Levitt not make mistakes. And that's why I think defenses overlook him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too. I think we just by the way he runs too, and obviously the hits he's willing to take. There's so much confidence in such a young QB, and I think that's kind of where Dillingham has struck really well with the quarterbacks that he's coached. Obviously, you look at Jordan Travis, who, at times when he was at Florida State was making the most incredible of throws, like across his body. And then you look at a guy like Bo Nix, who obviously we all know what Bo Nix did last year, and obviously with the Denver Broncos now. So
you see Bo Nix in Sam Levitt's game.
Absolutely do. And I think that's what makes Levitt so easy to coach for Dillingham and so easy for Marcus Arroyo to make a game plan around, because it's something Kenny Dillingham's already done before. And it's something that worked really well, obviously, for the Oregon Ducks. Arizona State taking on Kansas State tomorrow on ESPN, I believe, at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock Arizona time. Should be a lot of fun. This game, I mean, words can't even stress how much this game matters for Arizona State, with a chance to be able to win out and potentially make the Big 12 championship. A win here would be huge for the Sun Devils.
Hey, I think too an underlying theme is I think Sun Devil Twitter needs to get real active if it's looking like the Sun Devils are going to win, because the past few weeks, College Game Day has been waiting until the Sunday or Monday the week of to announce where they're going. And I think if the Sun Devils win, I think if there's enough of a push on it, I would not be surprised if game day comes to town for that BYU matchup, even though it won't be on ABC. It's still on ESPN. It's the midday game that is getting a lot of the hype for the next week, because ironically next week is when the SEC has its usual, we're going to go play FCS Southeast School of the Blind, this, that, and the other. And so with the lighter slate and with going to Columbus, would not be surprised if game day comes to Tempe with a win.
Absolutely, Jacob. Appreciate your time. I know you gotta dip out and go be with your team. I will catch you in like an hour and a half or so.
Sounds good, brother.
All right, take it easy. Jacob Saliga joining me here on the weekend preview. Man, I would be so tired. Trust me, I would love for game day to be at Arizona State. I don't think Arizona, at least I, in my time of living, don't remember game day being at ASU. So that would be super awesome, super fun. I know ASU would bring a heck of an atmosphere. Um, kind of like Berkeley, they had people that were just out there since midnight. I mean, I think it would just be one of those things where you just got to go and you got to experience it. And so I would love for game day to be down here, just be down there, experiencing. I can't talk right now. It'd just be fun to be down there and get to experience it and be a part of it. Some more ASU talk before we talk to Mason Byers about girls flag football. ASU basketball, what a big win for them last night against GCU, getting it done in what was essentially a home game for the Lopes. Yosan Sanin was going absolutely insane. He dropped 21 points and I will say this. And Chris Cartman sent out a tweet about this earlier today. I absolutely agree that last night watching this team, especially the way they were just able to move the ball and get shots up, get to the rim in a very physical way. This team, I do see flashes of this guard U team in ASU, which is interesting because the best player on the team um, is a big man. And that guard U team, I mean, I think they had Romello White, but the player they didn't have on that team was they didn't really have a necessarily a dominant power forward like they have in Bashir Jihad, and Bashir Jihad is just absolute terror. He almost had another double double last night. He had 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. 9 for 11 from the free throw line, which by the way, Arizona State's free throw shooting this season, a 21.2% increase from last year's the first 4 games of last season when it came to free throw shooting. I think a lot of people remember how atrocious ASU's free throw shooting was last season, but they are off to a much better start now. And they've been a fun team to watch, especially last night. I think they finally, I think obviously they've been able to find a rhythm. They've been able to get that chemistry together so quickly, and they moved the ball around, got the ball to Sand, and he dropped 5 threes, the most by an ASU freshman since 2019. Then Quayton's just dominating on the defensive end. He's got 14 blocks in the year, which is tied for the most in Division One. There's a player at Robert Morris who also has 14 blocks on the year. So this ASU team's been a lot of fun to watch, and they've got some big games coming up that I think will be a good chance for them to really show people that they are really good. They play St. Thomas, who I believe is an up and coming Division One team. They were just a Division Three team a couple years ago, I think. So if ASU goes into that game on Sunday and wins by 30, I think that would be a really good mark for Arizona State. Then they got Cal Poly on Wednesday, so it's going to be a busy week for Arizona State athletics next week. There's a basketball game on Sunday, basketball game on Wednesday, football game on Saturday. I think there might be a couple of hockey games next week as well too. So it's just going to be a jam-packed week of ASU athletics, especially if game day ends up coming to Tempe next week. That would be absolutely insane. I don't even know where they would do game day. And when I say that, let's go ahead and bring in our Hypermart girls flag football reporter, Mason Byers. Mason, I know you're also ASU student finishing out your senior season. Where do you think ASU? Where do you think they would have game day if it came to Tempe?
Well, ESPN's got some money. They got some motion, so they'll probably close down Mill Street and Mill
Oh
Ave, and
man,
that would be them. They could do that. The ESPN could fork over a couple dollars to make it happen. I think
that would be if Mill just being closed from like midnight to like the next day. I mean, I wouldn't sleep for hours. I'd be so tired, but man, that would be a lot of fun. Mason Byers joining me now in the weekend preview, the Hypermart girls flag football writer. Mason, how you doing on this Friday?
Dude, I'm good. This is where all the fun starts. I'll be out at some playoff football for tackle tonight, and
Oh, where you headed?
McClintock Campo. So
Oh, okay.
I'll probably run
You'll
into
be out there with
Zach
Zach.
over there. Yeah.
Sweet. It's a lot of
Yeah.
fun. All right, well, let's get right to it. First of all, just starting with the season overall on the whole, what has been sort of your takeaways from this year's girls flag football season?
Well, my biggest takeaway, comparing it from last year when I first covered it compared to this year, there's just way more teams. Obviously, there's the 4A conference, which we didn't have last year in girls flag football.
Mhm.
That's been really exciting. 4A is probably the most exciting conference right now in the playoffs. A lot of coaches I've talked to, a lot of players that didn't play last year, they're not playing this year. So it's just been really awesome, just in general, to see the growth of the sport. There's been a lot of new teams that have come out and played amazing. We kind of have some of the same teams from last year that did really well, kind of in that mix to win the championship again. But we also have a lot of brand new teams that are trying to fight their way to get to that championship game next Saturday.
You said 4A first year playing girls flag football. What is it about the 4A conference that makes it the most exciting this season?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of teams. A lot of the teams in 4A didn't have a program last year, so it's pretty much like I'd say 80% of it. I mean, that's just a rough estimate. 80% of it is probably brand new programs that weren't in last year's flag football. So it's kind of cool just meeting new players, talking to new coaches, things like that. You have a team like Eastmark and Mesquite who were in 5A last year and they dropped down to 4A this year, and both of those teams are in the final 8 right now in 4A. So both those teams I think are personally really good. Mesquite just had a basically a walk-off game winner last on Wednesday, so that was pretty cool to watch. Yeah, there's just a lot of new teams, and it's between the 8 teams. Like I have my predictions obviously, but I think it's going to be a tight race.
Well, let's talk about the first round of this playoffs. What has been the biggest surprises and the things you expected to happen throughout the first round?
I'll go into the things I first expected. I'll go jump to 6A real quick. I expected Hamilton to kind of take care of business. I think they're going to take care of business throughout the entire bracket. To be honest, I don't think 6A. There's like some teams I think can make Hamilton work a little bit, but I've seen that team play a couple times, and they just have way too many playmakers. They're really well coached, so that wasn't shocking to me. Obviously, I think I'd be really shocked if they didn't win 6A. Like, that would be the biggest upset. Mountain View and Highland, both of those teams got wins on Wednesday, so now we're going to get a 4 and 5 seed matchup between them. That one's going to be really good. Highland, they have a couple losses on the year. All of them are to pretty great teams like Basha, things like that. Mountain View only has 1 loss on the year. They're the reigning 6A champions, so they're obviously trying to make their way back to the final game, obviously, and defend their crown. A game that really shocked me was Red Mountain Gilbert. It was the 7-seeded Red Mountain taking on 10-seeded Gilbert. I thought this game was going to be a little closer, in my personal opinion. I actually covered this game. Red Mountain pretty much ran away with it. They won 31-6. They started the year 3-3, but now they're on a 7-game winning streak. So they've really turned their season around. Pretty much. Again, though, they play in 6A. That's going to be a brutal slate if they have to play against Hamilton, which it would be in the championship game. And then I'll talk a little bit about 5A, some of the things that surprised me. Verrado, a team I haven't personally covered myself, but they played up against a North team. North, I think, only had 2 losses on the year coming into this game. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer. Verrado ended up winning 49-0. So I think they've been a little under the radar, maybe even by me a little under the radar. But they had a pretty impressive win. They play Casa Grande tomorrow. I did 1 Casa Grande game. That'll be really good. That's another 4 or 5 seed matchup. So yeah, we got a lot of good matchups tomorrow for sure.
Absolutely. And just looking at the 6A bracket, obviously you touched on it, the Highland Mountain View game. Obviously Marana, the 3 seed, taking on Millennium, and then Basha, Red Mountain, Hamilton, the clear number 1. But how competitive do you see that 6A bracket getting down the stretch?
This round coming up is going to be the most competitive, I think, tomorrow, because like I said earlier, Mountain View, Highland, I think Mountain View should win that game, especially it's at home, but Highland still has all the talent to win. The game I'm really most interested in is Red Mountain and Basha, though. Basha only has one loss on the year, and it's to Hamilton. And Red Mountain, like I said, they're on a 7-game winning streak, so they're really finding the rhythm. Their quarterback, Corey Roberts, electric. She had like a 50-yard rushing touchdown on the opening
Jeez.
drive of that game. And then Basha, they just have so many playmakers. They have Claire McMahon, who's a freshman. She had a little bit of injury problems. I think she's playing this game, though. She's been unstoppable as a freshman, underclassman. So I'm really excited about that game. And then Millennium Marana, another great game. Marana, I watch both these teams. Millennium, I think, has the best two-way player, perhaps, in Brianna Saunders, who plays quarterback for them and also defensive back. The game I covered, she had a passing touchdown, passing touchdown, rushing touchdown, and 5 interceptions, 2 of which she took back for 6. And then Marana has Roebuck, the receiver, and if anyone's ever seen Roebuck, you'll just throw the ball up to her; she'll come down with it.
Very, very similar to her brother.
Yeah, literally, exactly.
What other than Hamilton, who I think if anybody's seen Hamilton play or heard the name Smythe Taylor Jenkins knows that they're one of the best teams in the state. Other than the Huskies, which team has impressed you the most this season, and which player on that team has stood out?
In 6A, or just
in the state in general.
Well, a team that really impressed me, I kind of had them. I had them higher ranked than most people coming into this season, but that's Canyon View. They were the runner-up last year, and I think a lot of people were kind of sleeping on them. I think people said their strength of schedule hasn't been too hard per se, but they've taken care of teams that they should have. What really surprised me the most is they only have 1 loss in the year. It's to Hamilton. But what's impressive about that is that's the closest Hamilton's ever gotten to losing this year. They only lost by 10 points. Other than that, Canyon View took down the reigning 5A champs and Campo Verde. They took care of their conference or the region play with Lake Havasu, teams like that. And Mackenzie Pope, receiver for them. Obviously, Kaylin Jewell, fantastic quarterback, deserves all her flowers, but Mackenzie Pope is a legit receiver. She can do it all. I mean, the game I covered, she had 2 receiving touchdowns. She had a punt return touchdown, which I've only seen happen twice. And the second season I've covered flag football, it's not easy to get punt return touchdowns in flag.
Yeah.
And then she's like, it's like Travis Hunter. She was straps on defense. Like, she wasn't allowing anything on her side of the ball. So another team too, Mountain Point, they were 6A. They dropped down to 5A this year. They're undefeated currently. They're the first ranked team. Amaya Moreno, she's been amazing. They're super well coached. I think I underrated them a little bit coming into this year. They've proven me wrong, which I'm not afraid to admit. But yeah, those are the 2 5A teams and some other teams that have really impressed me so far.
How many players? I'm just kind of curious, and I think a lot of people are curious too that don't know a whole lot about the girls' flag football world. How many of these girls are playing both sides of the field?
That's funny you say that. Probably, I'd say a little bit more than half.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like anytime I talk to a coach, I'm like, I kind of ask him like, oh, what's like the kind of scheme that you run with them? Like, well, how come they're receiver over here, but they play linebacker?
Yeah,
and the coach 90% of the time tells me I'm going to put my best players out there as much as I can. That pretty much goes to show a lot of the 2-way players that we have in flag football. Samaya Taylor Jenkins, who I think is probably the best in the state. She's a 2-way player. Brianna Saunders, talked about her a little bit, 2-way. Maddie Koger, she is, I think, top 2, top 3 receiver in the state, if not 1. 2-way player. Usually when you see best players on their team, they'll play the other side of the ball. A lot of the times quarterbacks don't usually do it because they kind of want to preserve their energy unless you're Brianna Saunders, who's just an absolute athlete. But most of the time, if you're not playing quarterback, you might be playing on the other side of the ball.
Mason Byers, our Hypermart Girls Flag Football writer, joining me here on the Weekend Preview. Mason, last question for you. How cool has it just been to see the overall growth of this sport over the last couple of years? I know this is only your second year covering it, but this is really is this year 2 or year 3 of it being a official sanctioned sport? I think it's year 2, right?
Yeah, this is a year 2.
So getting just for you too, getting to cover really the first real 2 years of this being a sanctioned sport, just how cool has it been to see it evolve and to grow what it is today?
I think it's super cool. I think the biggest thing, I kind of talked about it earlier. I think the biggest thing that I think is cool about it is seeing new girls trying it. When I talk to a lot of coaches and players that are new to the sport this year, they're like, "Well, I play soccer and during the spring or whatever. I play basketball during the spring, winter, but I kind of wanted to add another sport. And I saw flag football being played last year, and I thought it was interesting. And usually, all those girls that I talk to are like naturals at it. They're just really good.
Yeah.
So that's always fun to see. The media covering it, like Arizona Cardinals they had their game of the week for 8
Yeah.
weeks of the regular season. That's amazing to see. I talked to you a little bit about this before, but I'm going to be trying to cover ASU flag football. So, I mean, I think that high school, starting at high school, has really opened the doors for it to be a club sport, potentially an actual Division I sport, not just a club sport in a couple of years. At the D1 level, that would be super cool. So, this is by far, I think, the fastest growing sport right now in America. It's pretty insane. Yeah. So I think that's just cool to see. I think it's cool. Like every year we see new teams, new coaches, new players, and everyone's just having fun. Like at the end of the day, like it's a sisterhood. When with these girls playing, I mean, they're always uplifting each other, especially like other opposing teams. They're always just, uplifting each other. It's great sportsmanship always. So it's been really awesome to cover it.
Well, Mason, appreciate you stopping by today, and I know you'll be out there at McClintock tonight. Is the game at McClintock or is that Capo Verde? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's actually at Mesquite, so Campo Verde has been having some field issues, so
interesting.
Yeah.
All right, well, there you go.
They're redoing the track, so.
Okay. All right, well, there you go. Mason Byers, Hypermark Girls Flag Football writer, joining me here on the Weekend Preview. Mason, thanks for joining, and catch up with you down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam.
Always love chatting up with Mason. He is very knowledgeable when it comes to Arizona girls high school flag football here in the Valley. So it has been great to see the sport evolve into what it is today, and to see it grow in the last 2 years, especially with the Arizona Cardinals. The whole thing the Arizona Cardinals are doing about broadcasting the games is really super cool too. I love that they're giving the same amount of love to the girls as they are for the boys. And speaking of the boys, it is that time. Talking about Arizona high school football here in the Valley as the playoffs are about ready to get underway tonight for the big schools. But before we jump to what happened with the rankings and the brackets last week, I got to talk about some of the biggest surprises from last week. The biggest one for me, this is the game I was at last week, ALA Queen Creek getting a 42-7 win over Queen Creek. I have to say, first of all, going to this one, I did not see this coming at all. But ALA Queen Creek looks like a phenomenal team right now. Britt DeWitt, who was taking over for Crew Daniels, did a fantastic job last week managing that offense. And obviously they got the great running backs in Brandon Brown and Bobby Nesbitt, who have been playing great all year. But to see him connect with his wide receivers, Bo Sparks, Kingston McCabe, were really great too. And Queen Creek really just couldn't figure it out. Their ALA Queen Creek's defense, Tate Reynolds, Talon Roy did a great job of shutting down, Brody Michael, Talon Roy did a great job of shutting down Tate Reynolds all night, who really wasn't able to do anything. Queen Creek got into ALA, into enemy territory a couple times in the night, but just turnovers. Reynolds had an interception. I think there was a fumble too that ALA Queen Creek recovered. So it really just was a crazy game, and one I was not expecting at all. The Patriots getting a big win, and they snatched an open division seed, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Another score that surprised me, but I think it solidified something, is obviously Hamilton getting a big 56-14 win over Chandler. First of all, got to show some love to my guy, Rich Lucero. He's had nothing short of a fantastic year, breaking several records at Hamilton, including most passing yards in a season, and most yards in total offense in the season. So Lucero killing it, still looking. I really hope there's a Division I school, a big Division I school out there that's willing to give this kid a chance, because he really can get it done all across the field. He's both on the run, through the air, and really great quarterback who has a lot of really good traits. But I think for me, this game solidified what I have kind of been saying the whole year, and I'm not really sure how many more people were also saying it, but Chandler had a down year this year. And this is what in the summer, this is what I said. And coming into the season, this is what I said, that Chandler is not going to have the same year that they've had, with the obviously not the same success that they would have liked to have this season. And I know they had some quarterback problems late in the year. I'm not sure if Will Mensley is still out, and Carmigiano's in or not, but that the game they have against Perry. Look, first of all, this is a chance for the Pumas to get a big win tonight and get not only their first win against Chandler in school history, but their first and second win in the same year against Chandler, which would be huge for Coach Ortiz and the Pumas. We'll talk more about that game in a bit. Another result from last week, Mountain View coming up with a big win over Red Mountain. The Mountain Lions almost came back at the end of it last week, but they just couldn't get a stop. Brady Goodman, another quarterback in the state that has looked really good this season. Andy Litton has done a great job with his team. The Toros are rolling heading into the playoffs. They face a team in Cesar Chavez who really has a great year, and Chandler Hovick has done a great job, but I fear that the champions season will come to an end tonight. Obviously, we all know what Mountain View did just a couple weeks ago to Cesar Chavez and absolutely blew him out, and I think Litton's got that team on fire, and probably will likely see the similar performance from the Toros tonight. And I think the biggest result and the most shocking one was South Point getting not a 1, but a 2-score win over Brophy last Friday. I definitely didn't see that one coming either. South Point will take on Williamsfield tonight. Williamsfield was the team I thought was going to get a win versus Higley last week. And that was just, sometimes in this space, I think all of us media members can attest to this. We just have some really awful, terrible takes that come back just to haunt us. This was probably my worst take of the season, thinking that Williamsfield might get a win against Higley, because Higley just dominated 41-7 win. Gunnar Fagrell, who is just stepping up every time his name is called, and has really been great. The other big surprise was ALA Gilbert North getting the win over Horizon and getting snubbed out of the open division. And that's kind of where we will start talking about what these rankings look like and what the brackets look like. I'm going to go ahead and throw these up on the screen here. I've got two different, in case anybody's seen me looking around, and obviously if you're listening to this on Spotify, this has nothing to do with you. But I've got the stream over here on my left side, and then I've got the brackets and scores and a bunch of stuff on the right. And then I've got also a thing with some notes that is right in front of me, the camera, which I'm staring all of you at. I'm staring at all of you right now through this camera. But anyways, going ahead and take a look. First of all, I think we just got to start with that sounded really weird. Yeah, no, never mind. Scratch that. All right, let's talk. I think I got to get rid of this banner to be able to share my screen. Maybe. Oh no, my computer is in the way. Hang on, we're having some technical difficulties. Here we go. Present. Share screen. Here we go. Let's talk about it. Open division bracket. This is what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen. Marana coming in at the number 1 seed, and I said I think this is going to happen. I don't think there's a way that Marana is going to drop down, and they did it, and they have about as tough of a first-round matchup as you can get, with number 8 Hamilton's going to have to make the trip down to Tucson next Friday. I gotta be honest. I think Hamilton's gonna walk in here and win by 2 touchdowns. I really do. I think they're a way better team than Marana. No shame to Marana, though. They've done a great job this season. Colton Meyer, I think one of the other quarterbacks in the state that hasn't really gotten as much of attention as he should. I think he leads. He's one of the top leaders in the state in passing yards. And he really does. He really has done a great job. I think about the most competitive game we're going to see this weekend is probably this 4-5 Higley Liberty game. I still expect Liberty to win by several scores, and it bums me out. It really does bum me out that Higley's not going to get the chance to three-peat. I think they would have been challenged in 5A either way, but I think they would have had an easier opportunity to earn that three-peat. And I think it'll be I hate this stat, but it'll be the first time a winner of Just Chili Flight Club loses or doesn't win a state championship. Obviously, that's been a long-lasting sort of correlation between the two tournaments. You look at the bottom of the open division bracket, number 3 ALA Queen Creek. This is this big game as well, taking on number 6 Desert Mountain. I think ALA Queen Creek is going to continue their dominance and win that one easily next week. We'll dive more into that one obviously next week, and then Basha taking on Horizon sneaking into the open division of the 7th seed. I think that if anybody, it should be ALA Queen Creek, or excuse me, ALA Gilbert North in that space of Horizon, but it is what it is. So I think Basha will get a win there too, but we will do a deep dive on that matchup next week. Talking about the games that are going on tonight, specifically the 6A bracket. Obviously, that loss for Brophy hurt them. They probably would have been in the open division, probably over Horizon, maybe over Hamilton. I think there's probably a case for both you could have made. They'll take on Boulder Creek in the first round. I think we can all assume what the score of that one is going to be tonight as those teams face off. Like I said earlier, I think this is a big chance for Perry to make a statement and get a big win over Chandler. And oh boy, man, a rematch between Brophy and Perry next week would be electrifying. That would be really exciting. I'd love to see that. I think that would be one of the top matchups of the week, as well as South Point, Williamsfield taking on each other tonight, and then obviously Mountain View, Cesar Chavez. I think if South Point and Mountain View both win their respective games tonight, that is also going to be another really, really, really exciting game come next week. Look over here, and these are, I think, the two games that are going to be the most competitive ones of the night as we move down in the 6A bracket between number 3 Red Mountain and number 4 Centennial. I think that is going to be the most competitive game in the 6A bracket. And just below them, I think number 6 Highland, number 11 Castile is going to be the second most competitive game in the bracket. A rematch for Red Mountain Highland would be very exciting. That was one of the earlier region games this season where Red Mountain just completely shut down Kalen Fisher. He wasn't really able to do anything. And Jackson Bogle, too, was just running all over the Highland defensive line. And so I would expect similar sort of outcome if that happened. But obviously, I think Red Mountain gets the win against Centennial tonight. Although the Centennial team has looked really good in the last couple of weeks, they did lose 45-14 against Liberty last week. And Red Mountain obviously coming off that loss. We all know where Red Mountain did in the 6A playoffs last season. Obviously, they're a bit higher seed this year. But Kyle Enders, I think, will still be bringing in that same sort of fire that he's brought in with the Red Mountain team last season and with them this season. Simon Lopez has done a phenomenal job leading this team all year, and defensively, Red Mountain has looked really good too. So probably will be the last high school game for Nico Boncourt, who has been a phenomenal player in the state of Arizona. Transferred over from Cactus this season to Centennial, and has definitely left his mark. I read a great article the other day on Crockite News with Nico Boncourt detailing kind of his decision to move and stuff like that, and why some of the other players in the state are making the move too. It's pretty good. Highland, I think, is the win over Castile. I don't think there's much more to say than just I think Highland plays better football tonight than Castile does. Another game I think will be really exciting to watch is Pinnacle and Mountain Point. Obviously, you got a senior quarterback in Wyatt Horton who's trying to win a 6A state championship, and Mountain Point team who's got a ton of players all across the field who can make big plays. I think this is the sort of the battle between the team that's had a lot of guys that play together for a very long time, and a Mountain Point team that's got a collection of different guys throughout the years who have come together to have a pretty solid season. Obviously, the 10th seed in the 6A, Pinnacle, the 7th seed in the 6A. And then the last game, 6A conference, number 2, Queen Creek, taking on number 15, Standard Day O'Connor. I think Queen Creek's just going to be like, we do not want what happened last week to happen again and come out and get a big win tonight. Looking at the 5A bracket, and I want to be completely transparent here. I think that ALA Gilbert North by far in the top half of the 5A bracket has by far the easiest path out of any of the conferences to make a state championship. He played Barry Goldwater the first round, who I think is Barry Goldwater's first state championship. It's been somebody told me the other day it's been forever. I think it was Jacob told me it's been forever since Barry Goldwater has been in the playoffs. Huge accomplishment for them, but unfortunately, I think they are just going to get routed by ALA Gilbert North tonight. McClintock versus Campo Verde. This is a chance for Jackson Knutson to kind of prove that he can do it all. And Campo Verde, who also is another team that got a big win a couple of weeks ago over McClintock. McClintock is going to have to, as Mason said, go to Mesquite High School where this game will be and take on Campo Verde. So a chance for Jackson Knutson for redemption and also face a really good ALA Gilbert North team who's hot right now. This is a big matchup. I think a lot of people are excited for. I don't know much about either of these two schools, but Iowa Ridge and Raymond S. Kellis have been two schools that have done a phenomenal job this season. So I know that game's going to be exciting. Number 4, Cactus taking on Mountain View Marana, number 13. Moving down the bottom half of the bracket, this is where things get exciting. Number 3, Buena taking on number 14, Casa Grande. And then the other game, number 6, Verrado taking on number 11, Notre Dame Prep. One of the surprises from last week that I didn't mention that obviously caught me by surprise was Verrado getting the 17-10 win over Desert Edge. Verrado looks real good right now. Jeremy Hathcock is doing a great job with that team. Notre Dame Prep, no Cooper Perry out. He's high school career is over, which by the way, got to give it up for Cooper Perry. Phenomenal high school career. He's going to do great things at Oregon next year. I'm super excited to watch him play in college. And just what he was able to accomplish while Notre Dame Prep is truly awesome. But Verrado, I think, is going to get a big win here tonight. And I think they're going to probably find their way, potentially maybe an upset here against Buena in the second game here in the quarterfinals of the 5A championship of the 5A bracket. And then we move down. This is the big one of the night. The game I'm going to be at tonight, I think, is going to be the most competitive game in the state tonight, the most exciting game in the state. That's number 7, Desert Edge, taking on number 10, Cactus Shadows. Donovan Dixon, man, this is a kid who is on my ballot for one of the top QBs in the state this season, and also one of the top offensive players in the state this season. Donovan Dixon has just been firing on all cylinders, dominating, and Desert Edge's defense is going to have a real test tonight. I'm very, very excited to go out and cover this one. In the bottom half, Cienega versus Tucson. I have to say, coming into this season, I didn't think Tucson would be the number 2 school in the 5A whatsoever. I don't think I saw that coming at all. So lots of great games going on tonight. Lots of great games to come over the next couple of weeks. Super sad that the high school football season is coming to an end. It's been a great year getting to call games and getting to share all the moments and do everything. So really am just looking forward to watching these teams compete against each other because it just gets super exciting once we get into the end of the year. Although one thing that concerns me that I realized a couple days ago, if ASU gets to the Big 12 championship, the high school football state finals are the same weekend. So gonna have to make some decisions there on where I want to go. Obviously, I'd have to do everything to fly out to Arlington and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. And it's been a great year. I do think, though, I think next year is going to be one of the most exciting years of Arizona high school football we've had since that 2022 season with Basha winning the Open Division title. So lots of great football to come. Obviously, this weekend, Arizona State taking on Kansas State in Manhattan. That's going to be a great one. 5 o'clock on ESPN. And the Arizona Cardinals taking on what I think. By the way, Arizona Cardinals #1 in the NFC West. Didn't see that coming at all heading into this year. Seattle Seahawks, who I personally think that the Seahawks are the most annoying fan base in the NFL, and I will stand on that. The Cardinals traveling to Seattle this week. Hopefully they get a big win. Seattle looks like they've got some injury problems offensively. Obviously, George Fant out of the year. They got some tight end issues as well, and their center's out. So, we'll see. I think the Cardinals have a chance to get another key victory here in the NFC West, and that should be really exciting as well. And then ASU basketball's got a game coming up on Sunday against St. Thomas, who is an up-and-coming program at the Division I level. So a good opportunity for Bobby Hurley and his team to score a lot of points and really see how much of that guard you play. We might see, I mentioned earlier, for those of you who weren't tuned into the segment with Jacob Celia, that I see a lot of flashes of the old guard U team and this ASU team this season with Yosan Sanin. And by the way, Alston Mason, I think one of the unsung heroes of this ASU basketball team this season. He's really been facilitating the ball well, and just he's a great pure sharpshooter. He could just step back and hit you with a nice little fadeaway jumper, or he could really do a great job at driving into the lane and putting up for a physical layup. So it's been a lot of fun to watch this ASU team this season, especially the way they fought against Gonzaga as well, which I think taking a loss to Gonzaga, one is obviously you're playing the number 16 in the country, but ASU played a really good game and they had Gonzaga beat up until the very end. So it's great. It's a great time if you're an Arizona sports fan. ASU football is doing great. ASU basketball is doing great. The Cardinals are doing great. The Suns are doing great despite 2 losses to Sacramento and obviously some injury problems as well. But still of plenty of time for the Suns. They still got 70 games left to play this season. So that's a lot of basketball games. But if you have time tonight, definitely go out, check a high school football game around the Valley. I know there's going to be reporters all over the place. Zach's going to be at McClintock, Cabo Verde. I think JJ Digos is going to be at Red Mountain Centennial. I'm going to be at Desert Edge Cactus Shadows. Chili's going to be at Desert Edge Cactus Shadows too. I think that game, Desert Edge Cactus Shadows, I've said that 4 million times, is also going to be broadcasted on the Epic Sports Network. So if you're not going anywhere and staying inside, definitely tune in to the NFHS network to watch James Poovey and company broadcast that one. It should be a fun weekend, a fun night. And that's going to do it here today for the weekend preview. I'm Adam Beadle, and we'll see you next weekend.